Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Cougar, the Bitch, and the Wardrobe. I'm your host, Lana Mazer, also known as Curated by the Cougar. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. And if you are already a listener and subscriber, welcome back. Your support means the world to me. Today, we are going to be diving deep into a topic that I'm sure has affected many of us. And the topic is privacy, trust, and respect in friendships. Where does loyalty to your partner end and loyalty to your friends begin? The episode digs into the science, the research, and the real talk around privacy boundaries, backed by the experts who've studied this for decades. Now, the reason for this episode is that unfortunately, this became an issue in a friend group of mine and involving a certain friend. And it really ruptured the group dynamic and friendship due to the occurrence of her sharing personal information about all of these friends, including myself, with her fiance, and obviously was not to our knowledge. And so I did want to talk about it today because I realized that this is relevant and has probably affected so many of us. And sometimes we're not exactly sure how to feel about it. And that's why I spent a lot of time gathering research and statistics, because as much as I'm sure my listeners value my opinion, I didn't want this based on my opinion. I really wanted this based on the experts' research. So that way we can make thoughtful and educated conclusions. So, privacy. Privacy is not secrecy. It is the space that allows trust to breathe between your friends, between your partner, and within yourself. The moment we confuse the two is the moment trust starts to erode. So, privacy boundaries in relationships, when it comes to your friends, I think that this is a topic people don't like to sit with because it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about who we are loyal to and why. Privacy, trust, and respect don't exist in silos. They are deeply interconnected. Research in relationship psychology consistently shows that healthy relationships require holding multiple loyalties at once. And when we fail to manage those loyalties thoughtfully, the damage spreads in all directions. What you share, how you share it, and who you share it with are not trivial questions. They are daily decisions that define the culture of your closest relationships. Now, I'm going to ask a question to my listeners out there. Have you ever told your partner something a friend shared with you in confidence? Did you even hesitate? That answer will tell you everything. So, getting into it a little bit. Sharing friends' personal information with a partner. And this is where the research comes in. If you're not familiar with Dr. Brené Brown, I highly recommend that you introduce yourself to her writings and her research. She is a research professor at the University of Houston. So this is how she explains it. The vault is not just about the fact that you hold my confidences. It's that in our relationship, I see that you acknowledge confidentiality. Brown, who is one of the world's leading researchers on trust and vulnerability, developed the Braving Framework for understanding trust. V stands for the vault. What you share with me, I hold in confidence. And critically, I don't share other people's information either. Brown's research found that one of the fastest ways to lose someone's trust is not by betraying their secrets directly, but by demonstrating that you gossip and share other people's information freely. If your friend sees you casually revealing another person's private matters to your partner, they will rightfully wonder, what do you do with mine? And that's really, I think, interesting that if we experience that, being with a friend and let's say you're having a conversation with your friend and now they're talking about your other mutual friend's business behind their back without person being there, then in that moment you might say to yourself, oh my God, if she's so freely talking about this person in front of me who's our mutual friend, I can only imagine what she's doing when I'm not there. And so the same goes in a romantic relationship as well. Dr. Sandra Petronio, Communications Privacy Management, CPM theory, private information is co-owned. When someone tells you something personal, they are making you a co-owner of that privacy boundary. And that comes with responsibility. Her theory, one of the most cited frameworks in relationship research, describes what happens when private information is shared without the original owner's consent as boundary turbulence. Research applying CPM has shown that unauthorized disclosure can lead to damaged relationships, social embarrassment, and deep fractures in trust, even when the person sharing had no malicious intent. Good intentions do not erase the harm of a breach. And so this became very relevant recently because this friend of ours allowed her fiance to read the text messages that have been going back and forth between this group for the last 2 years, unbeknownst to us. Now, I did have my suspicions, and unfortunately, it was confirmed for me that I was correct. And not only was he was privy to these conversations in a group, but I'm assuming the direct conversation just between me and my friend in WhatsApp, he was also had access to these conversations as well. And in addition to that, there were photographs of nothing crazy. It was literally just all of us having fun. We were in Ibiza, we were dancing on a boat. I mean, it's nothing that was so that would reveal anything. But the thing is that like he had access to all of these photos, which I also find uncomfortable. If she had asked me first, I would have felt better about that. But again, this is sharing information that's within this privacy vault. And now that vault, that trust has been broken and leaked. A 2025 study published in Computers in Human Behavior confirmed that people engage in what researchers call a self-other calculus when deciding whether to share someone else's information. But emotional state heavily influences the decision. People were significantly more likely to disclose others' private information when they were feeling emotionally positive, or perhaps if they themselves felt that there was something at risk in their own relationship. So in this situation, there was a breach in between the couple, a trust issue. And so instead of dealing with that issue head on, this person felt it appropriate and necessary to say, well, look, I'm going to give you my phone, or you have access to my WhatsApp and you can read all of the messages that have been going back and forth for the last 2 years. And again, this is very disturbing to me, just because I feel that there were things that were shared either by myself or my other friends with this person that were very, very private. And that feels like a major violation. Like, I feel violated by this. And I don't know her fiance. I've met him twice, and this person has access to all of our communication without our consent. So, how do you deal with this? Ask first, always. If something a friend shared with you feels relevant to discuss with your partner, ask your friend's permission first, especially if it's sensitive. A simple, hey, is it okay if I mention this to my partner? Or, hey, is it okay if I share with my partner our photos from our girls' trip? It takes 30 seconds and ultimately preserves the friendship. And if you can't ask, or you know the answer would be no, keep it to yourself. So, when is it ever appropriate, if at all, to share what a friend told you in confidence? Is venting to your partner about a friend's business the same as betrayal? Where is that line? So, this is a very interesting question to address because, again, I think that obviously in relationships, you're going to vent to your partner, but you can vent without giving specifics that would be hurtful to your friend if those specific details were revealed without them knowing. So I think that there's a way to vent. Oh, I'm frustrated with so and so, or, so and so did something to annoy me, or her behavior has just been really annoying lately, or, I'm not really into what she's doing. That's different than being like, well, let me tell you what she did, and listing it out. Even if that person didn't do anything that was harmful towards you, and maybe it was something that you disagree with, but if it's something that your friend shared with you in confidence, you do not share the specifics. I truthfully think that the only time it ever makes sense to share details with your partner is if you are concerned for your own safety, his or her safety, or the safety of your friend. Otherwise, it's a no go. So, what about partners reading private messages? 42% of adults under 35 have accessed a partner's phone to look at texts, calls, DMs, emails, or photos, according to a large scale Norton consumer survey. And yet, research also shows that surveillance behaviors are inversely correlated with trust, meaning the more you snoop, the less trust exists in the relationship. Dr. John Gottman, University of Washington Relationship Research Institute. Trust is built in the smallest of moments, what Gottman calls sliding door moments. Every time a partner chooses to snoop rather than have a conversation, they choose suspicion over connection. Gottman, who has spent over 40 years studying relationships, defines trust as partners knowing that each will think and act in the best interest of the other. His research, drawing on over 3,000 couples studied over decades, found that contempt, stonewalling, and surreptitious monitoring are all markers of relationships headed for serious trouble. Trust, Gottman says, is not proven by transparency. It is built through consistent, trustworthy behavior over time. Demanding access to a partner's phone is not a sign of closeness. It is a sign that trust does not exist, hasn't been built, or has been broken. In a privacy, silence, and intimate relationships research, it was found, this is from 2025, so just a year ago, many couples opt for privacy silence, an unspoken agreement not to demand access to each other's private communications, which actually functions as a powerful signal of trust. So, in this study involving 20 in depth interviews, found that many healthy couples never explicitly discuss phone privacy because they don't need to. The absence of that conversation is the trust. When explicit demands for access do arise, researchers identified it as introducing fear, suspicion, and potential harm to the relationship's foundation. The conclusion? Requiring full transparency doesn't build trust, it reveals its absence. It has also been shown that 38% of women and 21% of men admitted to looking at a partner's online activity at least once in the past 2 weeks, per research published in Computers in Human Behavior. Crucially, those who engaged in surveillance reported lower relationship satisfaction, not higher security. So, that being said, is full transparency ever actually required in a healthy relationship? Or does demanding it signal that the relationship itself has already failed? What does it say about a partner who insists on reading your messages just to feel secure? And I think that this is imperative and crucial to discuss, because I think that in some ways in society, it's almost like this idea of being in a relationship with your partner has been overly romanticized, that, we are one person, and what you tell me, you could be telling him, or vice versa, and it's the same thing. It's not. It's not the same thing. Entering into a relationship, hopefully a healthy relationship, means that you are still maintaining your own identity. That person that you were entering into the relationship is now, you're not like conjoining each other to each other, so that way you are not independent thinkers. Because if that's the case, that is a very slippery slope. And so the friendships that you have, your own independent thoughts, your opinions, that belongs to you. And so I really, really believe that having full transparency, meaning what's going on with your friends and family members or coworkers, if it's not that person's business, it's the same thing as not being your friend's business. You don't have to tell your partner if it's not relevant to them. So, same thing for sharing photos with a partner. If there are photos that belong to a group, and these were, obviously not for, sending or sharing with other people, 72% of people would feel betrayed if personal photos were shared without their consent, according to consumer research on image privacy and consent. The fact that your partner is asking to see them doesn't make sharing them okay. Consent belongs to everyone in the photo, not just the person holding the phone. Communication Privacy Management Theory, CPM theory, Dr. Sandra Petronio. A photograph taken in a private setting is a private artifact. Sharing it without the consent of those depicted is a direct violation of the co-ownership principle of privacy. Petronio's framework makes this clear. When you are present in a private setting, so let's say a girls' trip, a bachelorette weekend, a vulnerable moment between two friends, and photos are taken, those images are co-owned by everyone in them. No single person has the unilateral right to share them externally. Research applying CPM theory shows that violations like these, even well intentioned ones, are among the most common causes of boundary turbulence, the technical term for when private information gets out and relationships fracture. So, before you share photos from a trip or private gathering with your partner, ask yourself, did everyone in this photo consent to being seen by my partner? If the answer is no, or even maybe keep them to yourself, your partner's curiosity is not a higher priority than your friend's right to privacy. A simple group chat or check in is all it takes. Hey, is everyone okay if I share my photos with blah? So let's talk about this for a moment. Is your partner asking to see photos from your girls' trip as a simple sign of interest or a sign of something else? And what does it mean about the friendship if you share them without asking first? So, is it better to risk the trust that you have with your friends just because your partner has some insecurities about what you are doing when you go away with your friends? The answer is no. So, restricting friendships when concern becomes control. Dr. Andrea Bonior, clinical psychologist at Georgetown University, says this: isolating a partner from friends and family is often the very first step for a controlling person. It may start subtly, a complaint here, a criticism there, but it follows a predictable pattern. Writing in Psychology Today, Dr. Bonior says this identifies isolation from family and friends as the number one warning sign of a controlling relationship. It rarely looks like a demand at first. It looks like jealousy framed as love. It looks like, I just miss you when you're gone, or I don't really approve of what your friends are doing. It looks like subtle digs at your friends. And by the time it escalates to ultimatums, the damage is often already deep. Coercive control research, and this was done from the EBSCO Domestic Abuse Intervention Project, so EBSCO. Coercive control, which includes restricting friendships, is a form of psychological abuse. It develops gradually, starting with affection before shifting into control. By the time the pattern is visible, it is often entrenched. The Domestic Abuse Intervention Project's Power and Control Wheel, a widely used clinical tool, identifies social isolation as a primary mechanism of intimate partner abuse. Research shows this process is insidious because it rarely announces itself as control. The abusive partner often tries to move away from the victim's support network, monitor communication with loved ones, and critically make the victim feel that the isolation is their own choice. Clinicians note by the time a person's friends are gone, so is their primary source of reality checking. And so this really resonated so much in the situation because this person and her fiance, this friend, there's another friend in the group, and they have been friends for 16 years. and have never missed a beat in 16 years. This person now enters into my friend's life as her fiance, and now she is no longer allowed to see this friend of 16 years because her fiance doesn't approve of their friendship. I am speechless. So 16 years of friendship down the drain because this person's fiance doesn't approve of the friendship. And it's really interesting because, again, this has now come to a head where in this group, now this friendship, the friendships have blown up. They can no longer exist because there has been such a breach of security and trust in the relationship amongst the friends. And also, this friend is allowing her fiance to make the decisions for her, even though in conversation she states from herself that this is ultimately her decision. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of partner abuse in their lifetime, according to Oxford University's Journal of Cybersecurity. Research confirms that in an increasing proportion of these cases, control begins digitally, monitoring communications, restricting movements, tracking locations before it escalates to other forms of abuse. There is a meaningful difference between a partner expressing concern about a specific friendship and a partner forbidding friendships altogether. The first is a conversation, the second is a red flag. Healthy relationships tolerate and celebrate each person's independent social world. A partner who genuinely loves you wants you to have a rich life, not a restricted one. At what point does "I'm not comfortable with that friendship" stop being a vulnerable disclosure and start being a control tactic? And why do we so often let it happen before we name it? So let's get into early trust issues and how that gets into the world of couples therapy. The average couple waits 6 years after problems first emerge before seeking professional help. This is according to the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, AAMFT. By then, patterns of distrust, resentment, and avoidance are often deeply embedded. The research is clear. Earlier intervention produces dramatically better outcomes. Dr. John Gottman on the science of trust. Trust is not a feeling, it is a behavior, and it is built or destroyed in the smallest of daily interactions long before either partner realizes the pattern has formed. Gottman's landmark research on newlyweds found that trust problems appearing early in a relationship are not just speed bumps, they are directional signals. His data showed that couples who consistently chose self interest over their partner's well being in small moments were dramatically more likely to see those patterns calcify into contempt. One of the 4 behaviors Gottman identifies as most predictive of relationship failure. The other 3, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If any of those are present in year 1, that's not normal relationship stuff. That's data. 98% of couples who attend therapy report receiving good or excellent help, according to the AAMFT. And 93% said therapy gave them the tools they needed to address their problems effectively. Therapy works. The only reason not to go is the decision not to go. Research published in the Journal of Marital and Family Therapy showed that approximately 70 to 75% of couples see marked improvement in relationship satisfaction after completing counseling. Emotionally focused therapy, EFT, one of the most research approaches shows a 75% success rate in moving couples from distress to recovery. Seeking help is not a sign of failure. It is the single most evidence-based thing a struggling couple can do. But I do want to touch on also is that this research is based off of couples that have been together for a significant amount of time. But if these are problems from the get-go, then this is a red flag waving in your face that this relationship is unhealthy. So I need to clarify that. So, what does it mean for a relationship's long term future when trust issues show up in the first year? Is it fixable or is it a preview of what's coming? And why do we convince ourselves that ignoring it is the same thing as solving it? Balancing transparency with privacy, braving trust framework. The intention and outcome of vulnerability is trust, intimacy, and connection. The outcome of oversharing is distrust, disconnection, and usually a little judgment. Brown's decades of research on vulnerability and trust draw a critical distinction that gets lost in relationship conversations. Openness is not the same as disclosure without limits. She describes the vault, one of the 7 core components of trust in her Braving framework, as a two-way door. Yes, your partner should hold your confidences, but a trustworthy partner also does not share other people's information with you. If your partner comes home and gossips freely about their friends, colleagues, and family, they are showing you exactly how they handle private information. That is not intimacy. That is surveillance culture dressed up as closeness. So set clear expectations with your partner and your friends. With your friends, what I share here stays here. I won't share it with my partner without asking you first. With your partner, my friends trust me with things they share in confidence. I won't share those things without their okay. And I'd hope you'd do the same for yours. These are not dramatic conversations. They are the conversations that build durable trust. So from I think it's the CHI research on privacy dialogue from 2025, researchers advocate for privacy dialogue methods, open, collaborative conversations about boundaries that foster mutual understanding without placing the burden on one partner or implying mistrust. The research recommends that couples proactively discuss their privacy expectations, especially around digital communication, friend groups, and social lives, rather than waiting for a violation to make the conversation necessary. Couples who establish shared, explicit privacy norms early on are less likely to experience the boundary turbulence that damages relationships. The bottom line, having the conversation is an act of respect, not suspicion. How do you build a culture of trust in a relationship without violating the trust of everyone outside the relationship? And what does it say about your partnership if the only way to feel close is to tear down someone else's walls? So I just gave you a lot of information. So let's land the plane. I want to say that privacy is not the enemy of intimacy. It is the foundation. And as I went through the research, Dr. John Gottman spent 40 years proving that the healthiest relationships are not the ones with no secrets. Like when I hear that, we have no secrets between us or we're one person. No. The healthiest relationships are the ones built on consistent, trustworthy behavior. Brené Brown's research confirms it. Trust is not built by giving a partner unlimited access to your world. It is built one small moment at a time by showing them that you are someone worthy of being trusted with other people's worlds too. Your friends trusted you. That is not a small thing. What you do with that trust tells your partner more about you than anything you could say. And what your partner does with that knowledge, whether they respect it or demand to override it, tells you everything you need to know about them. So, I'm going to give you all a little homework. Have an honest conversation with yourself first. Ask where you may have blurred these lines. Ask what boundaries you need to set. And if you're in a relationship where the idea of maintaining your friend's privacy feels like a fight waiting to happen, that is not a privacy problem. That is a relationship problem. And it's worth taking seriously. Until next time.